Welcome to the Parent Ed podcast by Focus on the Family Singapore.
Family life can be crazy and chaotic, so join us as we figure it out together.
Hello and welcome to the Parent Ed podcast. My name is EJ and I'm your host for this episode. In each episode of the Parent Ed podcast, we'll be tackling questions that parents are asking about family life, parenting, marriage, work life, and more. We will be speaking with everyday parents and practitioners as they share with us their experience and practical ideas. We hope that you will keep tuning in to learn with us and to grow personally in your journey as parents. Now, as in the work that I do, I often get to meet parents who would ask me a lot of very interesting questions. For example, EJ, why is it so hard to communicate with my children now that he or she is a teenager? My child, they used to tell me everything that happens in school, but now he or she is giving me only like monosyllabic answers like or worse, the silent treatment that every parent is really worried about. So for some parents, their teenagers are challenging them every time they speak, they talk, questioning them, talking back, and somehow that communication has become like a battle zone. Home seems to be really like that, like a wartime. Every time they communicate, they try to talk to each other. So if these parent-child tensions are what you are facing at home, take heart parents, as you're tuning in, you are not alone. Today, in this episode of the Parent Ed podcast, we are here to unpack how parents can talk so that our teens will listen and have respectful dialogues and conversations together. Joining me on today's podcast is Yvonne, a mom of two, and here to share of her experience. So welcome, Yvonne, to our Parent Ed podcast. It's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you, EJ. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Let's start off today's Parent Ed podcast, and you could just introduce yourself a little bit more about yourself, the work that you do, and a bit more about your family too, maybe.
I'm Yvonne. I work in a local university. I've been working in universities for the past, I've been counting actually 12 years. So the bulk of my work is I look at workforce development. I develop young people so that they are ready to do their very best in the workplaces. I work with university professors. I work with industry partners as well. So I understand what the world requires our students to be equipped with. And I have two children, as what you mentioned. My son is 13, my daughter is 11, going on to 21, because she speaks to me sometimes like a 21-year-old. Yeah, so there's a lot of patience, a lot of facilitation needed.
Wow,
Yeah.
You work with young people,
Yeah.
and on the home front, you parent two teenagers or tweens, as they call it, who try to behave like
Yes.
young adults.
And all the time.
Okay, so I think, Yvonne, you're really the right person that we want to speak with today on this topic, how to talk so that our teenagers would listen to us as parents. When a children becomes a teenager, there are a lot of changes that are happening physically, facial hair, acne, especially girls are really concerned. Even boys are also very concerned about it. They pay a lot of attention to their grooming, personal grooming, and dressing as well. However, beyond just the physical changes that's happening externally, internally, there's also a lot of changes going on too. One common change is the need for that sense of autonomy. Right, independence, and often creates those tension between parents and the teenagers, and it also impacts the way they communicate, they relate to each other as well. So maybe before we dive deeper into this whole topic, could you share with us, in parenting your two children, 13 and 11 years old, how would you describe your style of communication with your children when they were, let's say, when they were younger?
First of all, I want to say that I'm not an expert. I just would like to share what has worked for my children and for me, because I always want to start with the end in mind. Because I work with so many young people and I understand that the world is really changing at a very fast pace and it's getting more and more complex and complicated. So the end in mind for me is that one day when my children become young adults, or when they have their own families, I still want to be that coach, that mentor, and that friend to them. I envision myself, and I told them many times, when you go out to work, let's say you work at Raffles Place, mommy wants to have lunch with you. And I don't want them to be embarrassed because they have been spotted with me sitting on the same table with them, chatting with them. So that's my end in mind. That's my goal. I want to be very honest that when I was growing up, there were things that I didn't want to tell my parents because I knew I would get scolded. I'll do things behind their backs. I've never forged their signatures, but I'll be like, I will do a lot of things and then I'll tell them actually at the end of the day. And I don't think that's a very healthy thing to do. And I don't want that to happen in my relationship with my children. So with that end in mind, I know that right now, or even when they were growing up, I actively want to preserve our relationships. And that is very important to me. So when they were growing up, I remembered there was once, they were 6 and 4. We rushed back from childcare. I picked them up for childcare because they were so hungry. So I cooked them something. I remember it was, I think, bee-hoon soup or something I do with fish balls. In my rush to bring the pot to the dining table, everything spilled. Everything spilled. Till today I can remember, the noodles were, the bee-hoon, the noodles, whatever was on the chair and on the floor. And the two of them looked at me and I looked at them. And I was like, I was hungry, they were hungry, I was frustrated, there were lots of chores to do. I was up to here, and I remembered that I said this to them, Mommy is really not ready to talk now. I need a break. Yeah. Can I leave you all here for a while? I really need a break. I'll come back to you. So I gave them, I think, a few packets of Meiji crackers. And in my heart was like, oh yeah, you're hungry, but you want, nothing will happen to you if you eat Meiji crackers that night for dinner. Yeah. So I just gave them a few Meiji crackers. I say, please eat first. Yeah, there's water. There's a water dispenser. They know how to get the water. I really need a break. I told them a few times, I'm not ready to talk. I need a break. I remember going to my bedroom, I was sitting there, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm hungry, I'm tired, it's a long day at work. I have a mess to clean up. I think it was about 15, 20 minutes I came out. And then I remember my son asked me, are you okay? Are you ready to talk now? And he said this, can we help in any way? I thought that was so heartwarming. I said to him, I think it's okay, I'll clean up. Yeah, I think today we just eat Meiji crackers. Okay, is that okay with you? The daughter was like, yeah, can we use sticky milk with it as well? Which is the condensed milk. And it's a luxury at home because I don't allow them to eat so much of sticky milk. And that actually set the pace for the relationship. So actually, since the incident, right, sometimes they are very upset and they won't want to talk, even at their young ages. And it's the same sentence I'll use with them. I said, is everything okay? Are you ready to talk? And they will tell me no. And I learned to not take it personally. Okay, you're not ready to talk, Ken. I'll come back later. Maybe we can talk later. And because the two of them are very different, I really am parenting children on the opposite spectrums. I look at them with two P's. Yeah, they both have different paces and priorities. One of them is you really need to give him time to process. For example, even since young, right, I would say, okay, we're going for dinner tonight. We're going for dinner outside. Yeah, what would you want to eat? And he won't be able to tell me what he wants to eat. But I will say that I learned that his pace is really, he just needs time to process and think. So I learned that we're going for dinner in about 3 hours' time. Okay, it's 4 o'clock now. We'll probably leave at 6:30. I have to give him the timing. And we'll probably reach the place at 7. By then, you should have an answer for me. Okay? Yeah. But the other one is like, no, I will tell you now and I'll tell you what I want for dessert. And then I'll tell you that, okay, there are other things I want to do after dinner and dessert. The pace is a lot faster. And for the other one, the priority is also very different. For him, it's like, it's my tasks, it's my Lego, I want to spend time by myself. I'm very comfortable in my world. And I just like it like that. I like to read. Yeah, that's my priority. The other one, the priority is no, she loves human beings. She loves to suck the energy out of other people, She just loves to go out. And the more crowded, the merrier. So they're very different. And with that in mind, yeah, I've also learned that when I speak to them, even since young, right, I can ask my daughter one sentence and she will give me like 20 sentences back. For my son, there's a lot more facilitation to do. Like, oh, how was your day today? And he'll be like, fine. I'm like, oh, I see. What's fine about it? Yeah, what did you have for recess? Did you play something different for recess? I'll be honest that it's a bit tiring because at my work, I already do a lot of facilitation, right? So for sometimes in the past, I learned that before I go home, I need to rejuvenate a little. It could be decompressing for 20 minutes, for example, or even telling myself, sometimes when there's no time to decompress, it's telling myself before I step into the home, right? Okay, it's time with my children and I want to make it count. I will step in and I will tell myself that, okay, it's time to spend time with my children. It could be even, and may not be the healthiest, but it could be for a long, long while, I must have a coffee at 6 p.m. If not, at home, yeah, I'll be really tired, or the bedtime stories will have no sequence. Okay, come on, once upon a time, and then, okay, the end, let's go to bed, Woo-hoo. Yeah. So that's certain, I learned that I need to take care of myself first before I can really communicate well with them. Yeah, if not, there'll be a lot of frustrations. And it's not because I don't love them, it's because I'm really quite tired. I'm really very tired after a whole day at work. Yeah. So I know it's a lot of things that I've shared, the paces, the priorities, and there's a lot of respect that I give them, I learned. There's a lot of space that I give them as well. And I give them the space to tell me that I'm not ready to talk, and it's okay. Because sometimes some things could have happened in school. They're still trying to process. Especially for some children, they want to decompress even before they come and speak with you. I'm parenting an introvert and an extrovert. So to understand my introvert better, I went to read Dr. Susan Cain's book, The Power of Introverts. And then I learned, oh my gosh, I've been parenting him not in the most appropriate way for the longest time. Yeah, the moment he comes home, like, hey Gabe, how's everything? How are you? And then he's like, whoa, that's actually very overwhelming for him. Yes. But for my daughter, it's different. She would decompress by just telling me all about her day from the beginning to the end, which friend cried, which friend fell down during recess. And that's her way of communicating and connecting with me. So I think those communication styles never really changed since young. But as they now grow into, I would say, young adults, then I'm a lot more respectful of their space.
Wow, thanks for sharing, Yvonne. As I hear you share, and you share with such great enthusiasm, having that lived experience, going through all the trial and errors, probably, what I hear is really that there's this whole art and science of just communicating.
Yes.
And you're not communicating with a child who is like just stagnant there in development. It's growing. So as the child grows, what I hear from you is also that you are also growing in your learning. Talk a lot about having the end in mind, what you hope to achieve, in that long run relationship with your child, what you hope to achieve. And that also is related to your journey of growing up, your own experience with your parent, so the good and the not so good probably, and you want to make it right in your communication with your children.
Right.
And I think a lot of our listeners can relate with the fact that you said that different child, their personality are so different, and you got to find what makes it tick with them.
Yes.
All right, a certain approach that works with the more introverted nature child and the one that works with a more extroverted nature. So I really appreciate hearing that from you, that you're being so intentional as a parent. Despite being a working mom, you're so tired out by the end of the day, there's so many things to handle, but you make every ounce of effort count with your child. And I think for all of us listeners, being a parent myself, I think that is so hard, having to juggle workload, caregiving for family members, but I think we can all agree that these are investments with our children that will bring forth, hopefully, very long run, fulfilling investment results.
The end in mind.
The end in mind, right? So I wonder, just on that note, so now your children are all grown up, they're teenagers right now. How's it going for you in your communication with them? You talk a little bit about being respectful.
Yes.
How's it holding up well with them?
It's been good, but I realized I have to be even more intentional in entering their space. So when I mentioned I give them space, right? They can tell me that I'm not ready to talk, I'm very tired, or when the monosyllabic words come out, I know that, okay, not the right time. So I give them the time and the space to process. Because they're growing up in this stage of their lives, I have to be very intentional about sharing their space as well. What do I mean? So I learned that I need to sit beside my son. So he could be watching a TV show or he could be playing games. And I think I've said probably to you, EJ, before that I'm not a big fan of games. But I learned that when he plays games, he speaks with me. The two of us, we hold it in control, and I'm really quite bad in the game that he loves. And I'm like, oh no, please help me. And then he's like, oh yeah, don't worry, mom. Voice breaking, right? Don't worry, mom, let me help you. Yeah, this is the button you press. Then I'm like, oh. So we will play for about 15, 20 minutes. Then he will start talking. And I'm like, whoa, woohoo, you have to grab that opportunity and then start chatting with him. I realized that sometimes, maybe because they're growing up, they find it very confrontational and very uncomfortable to look at you intensely in the eyeballs and talk. Some of us, we're like, no, you must look at me, and then we feel connected. I think for them, they're like, no, if there is something that they can hide behind, yet still share certain things with you, they will love it. And I also I've identified certain opportunities where he's open. For example, he will share a joke with me via WhatsApp. Or he'll be like, hey Ma, you must watch this video, it's really quite funny. And I'm like, oh, then I will really watch and I will actually discuss with him about it. Say, hey, how come like that? Yeah, this is such a funny joke, we must share this with the rest of the family. So I learned to write on the opportunities that he's given me to connect with him. I think that is very, very precious to me. Yeah, so I intentionally go into their spaces. I also realized that it's very important not to get personal with them. Meaning, so there are really moments where they, for example, I remember that was actually during the circuit breaker, if I'm not wrong, or the home-based learning period. It's happened a few times more. So my daughter needed to record something on Zoom. It's like a video recording presentation. So the first one didn't work. And she didn't ask me for help. So by the time the deadline was looming, right, then suddenly I found her crying in the room. She was crying. And then she said she needed some help. And I'm like, I am here to help, I'm here to help. But then what I found out was she actually spent 1 whole hour sitting there crying because she felt so sad that her initial efforts were wasted. So instead of telling her, hey, you snap out of it, 11:59, we have to hand up. If not, you cannot submit anymore on Google, Google Docs, right? I actually allowed her to cry. She really cried. I was listening and I was like, really? To be honest, a whole chunk of me was like, hey, come on, stop crying. We need to get to work. But I just allowed her. Then when I started hearing the sobs, it's like, okay, she's starting to calm down, right? And I'm like, okay, is there something I can do to help? I think my computer can do, maybe there's more RAM space. I'm trying to tell her that, why don't we change the computer? It could be the computer's fault. And she was very insistent that it's not. I said, maybe we try mine. Yeah, I have an upgraded version of Zoom. Maybe we should try mine. So the moment we went to it, right? So we spent another hour on it. And then instead of saying, I told you so, right? I told you already my computer better, right? I was holding back. I was like, okay, let's focus on the task. At the end of the day, we recorded, she submitted, she uploaded, all kinds of things, and we tested and made sure everything went up, right? And she turned to me and said, thank you, Mommy, for helping me with the video. I really shouldn't have cried. I'm like, yeah, I understand that was very frustrating. I was very tired. By then, I was like, oh my gosh, no. My eyes were like, going to fall. My eyelids were really, really, really heavy. But I was like, I think next time, it's okay. And then there are certain sentences in the family that we repeat ever since they were young. So I remember saying something to her to the effect of, in this family, we help one another. In this family, it's okay to ask for help. In this family, if I can't do it, somebody else in the family can do it and help you. It's really okay to ask for help. Yeah. In fact, I also prepared another set of sentences. If she cannot upload in time, I will say, it's okay. What's the worst can happen? Explain to the teacher, maybe we can upload again. Yeah, nothing is finite, Yeah, because I want to, in some sense, normalize failures. It's like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Let's try it again. It's really, really okay. I realized that I respected her instead of coming into, because honestly, that was my natural reaction. I was like, like, oh my goodness, because I clearly could see the solution, right? But that was the respect that I wanted to give them.
I was like secretly sniggering away quietly, hopefully, when Yvonne, you were sharing, because I think all the parents listening out there can really connect with this point that, a lot of times when we want, you mentioned smart, we want our kids to relate to us, talk to us. It starts with us learning to listen to them. It starts with us learning how to connect with them. In that process, us parents have got to learn to hold our tongue,
Yes.
Things cannot say with the bite our tongue.
Bite the tongue, yes, absolutely.
Correct, right?
Yes.
Because very often if we don't, the first few words that comes out often can sound very accusational, can be very nagging,
Yes.
can be like very instructional,
Yes.
I'm ordering, bossing you around. Yet, these things, while we have every good intentions in our hearts, but when it comes across to the child, it may build a wall, and subsequently they may feel worse, they may feel bad, and then they stop relating
Yes.
to us. So I really love your point when it talks about making effort to build that bridge of connection before we try to make any form of like instructions or
Yes.
corrections with them, because these connections have very powerful, long-term, healthy
Absolutely.
impacts on our relationship, right? So today we're talking a lot about communication styles and approaches,
Yes.
but we cannot dissociate it from our relationship with our children,
Yes.
right? So really, okay, let's get down to the more practical aspects of it, because I'm sure all the listeners on our podcast are concerned about specific scenarios that are happening at home, So for example, Yvonne, if one scenario, we're just popping this scenario up, and if your son says to you, why do I have to wash the dishes? All right, my friends, all of them don't have to do chores. I don't know, maybe they have a dishwashing machine, they just chuck it in, why do I have to do all the dishes? How would you respond?
Usually I will check on them, their emotional states. I'll be like, is everything okay? You sound very frustrated. Did something happen? Or are you very tired? Can I help you in any way? I usually offer my help and my support. So I will usually want to empathize with them first, because I do know that all of us are managing different challenges. Sometimes it's really unseen. It could be that he's worried about homework, or something happened, or there's something that's going to happen in that week that he's not looking forward to. And it's all that pent-up frustrations and worries and fears that is very unseen. So I usually will start with is everything okay? Can I help you? I understand you may not want to wash the dishes now, but I do really appreciate the help. Is it okay that you help me now or later? Can we work something out? That's what I would usually do.
Wow. So while the issue might be the chore that is on hand, but you do see there might be what we call like some underlying concerns that's causing a specific reaction
You're right.
or behavior from
You're
your
right.
child. So you want to address that. You want to meet that particular need the child is needing.
In some sense, I believe a lot in serving our children, being there to serve them, to bless them, to help them, because I know it's really not an easy world that they are in.
Let's try another scenario. This time, because you have a daughter as well, right? So now your daughter comes home, and this is maybe more on the social aspect, yeah, and complains to you, oh, mommy, all my friends are playing this latest handphone game, and I'm the only one who doesn't play because you don't allow me to play, and my friends are all ostracizing me. I'm being left out of the recess conversation. All right, it's all your fault. So wow, how would you communicate with her to get her to listen to you? In this sense.
Interestingly, something similar has happened already. When she first came to me, it was after school, and she was really quite pent up. So she was in front of me, and I'm like, oh, tell me what's so interesting about this game. I just wanted to divert the attention and the energy a little. So she shared a lot more, because I knew she was so heightened and so upset that if I want to say something sensible to her, it's not going to go in.
Okay.
So I actually asked her, tell me what's so interesting about this game. Yeah. Hey, why so many people are playing? What's the name of this game? So I just wanted to be very factual about it first. So she described, oh, sounds very interesting. Sounds like what I used to play last time as well. So I just wanted to manage her at that very factual level. And then that night I remembered, because she and I, we have very nice conversations, and she's the most receptive to me before bedtime. And our bedtime routine involves me scratching her back, talking to her about day. That's when I use that period to process. Like, why is it that she's not allowed to have a smartphone now? Yeah, why is it that maybe this game may not be the healthiest? If she wants to play a game, can we find other alternatives and maybe other things to play with?
I like that strategy. That's a strategy I would pick it up for myself. Diversion, talk about the factual things. Again, connecting at a level with the topic that they're interested in, connecting with at their emotional level at this point. I mean, it's always easy, right? If this specific scenario comes up, it's always easy for parents to jump in and attack head on with that issue. Why are you so rude? Why? And commenting on your child's behavior, so forth and so on. But yet, what I'm hearing from you is that flowing with where they are meeting our children at their point of need, and slowly from there, as you engage, you try to bring down the emotions, not so angry, and then at a level where you can really have a heart-to-heart kind of conversation. Yvonne, I just want to ask you this. As we talk here, it sounds like a scenario that we're posing, and it sounds like it's so easy, right, to resolve in a few sentences, but that's hardly
Not
there,
at all.
right?
Not at all.
Help us understand. It's definitely not a once-off kind of conversation, but it takes time. It takes duration.
I think there are certain principles I hold dearly. Yeah, it takes a lot of time. It takes really literally a lot of biting our lips. But I remember the 3 C's. Yeah, I always tell myself to stay calm.
Calm.
Yeah, the first C is calm. The second is I always remind myself that I need to connect before I correct. In some sense,
Connection is important.
So staying calm, connect first before I correct. I know it sounds very easy, it's like a formula, but it's a lot of practices that, there are moments I've lost it. Okay, there are moments I've flared up, I've reacted. And when I realize I've done that, I always apologize. I actually give my children the permission to call me out. Yes, I've given them the permission to call me out. Like, recently something happened and my son was like, you told us not to do it and you're doing it now. And I apologize. I say, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't very appropriate. It's true. And every few months, when I bring them out, just me and the 2 kids for lunch and all, I will ask them, so, how have I been as a mom? Is there something you want me to do more or do less? How have I been as a mom? Is there something you want me to do more or less? 3 questions. Those 3 questions can open up a lot of points of discussions. The principle in my mind is I'm the adult. I cannot and should not react. I should always stay calm. And after I'm calm, I connect, then I correct. But yes, EJ, there have been many moments I lost it. Totally. But I sincerely believe in the power of apologies, especially when it's sincere. The children really forgive. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, we are all work in progress, right? As parents,
Absolutely.
there's no perfect parenting. We are all growing, learning together. And that's why such podcast is important, where we all learn, listen and learn from everyday parents. The 3 C's that Yvonne has mentioned is so appropriate for all of us. If we really want our children to listen to us, I think first it requires us to be calm, disposition in our conversation with them, to connect with them, all right? Before we even try to correct. Then I think the correction can come later, not that it's not important, but it can come after we learn to connect with them. I really love, I'll add a 4th C, because I heard that in what Yvonne mentioned, that every few months she does checking in with the children. I think that checking in helps our children to realize that mommy and daddy are also human beings. And then every conversation that they try to have with us is not always just about them, about the academics, but it's also an opportunity for us to share with them our own journey as parents too.
Absolutely.
So wow, we have heard nuggets of wisdom from Yvonne today. I'm so thankful that she's on this episode of the ParentNet podcast. As we wrap up this episode, Yvonne, do you have any words of inspiration or advice for all our listeners as we close off today's sharing?
Maybe I'll add a 5th C.
Okay,
that,
cool. 5 C's. All right.
That again, let's go back to the end in mind. If we want to be that coach to our children for the rest of their lives, I think we need to start now. We can invest and build the relationships that we have with them. And for that to happen, the communication must happen, the relationship must be in place. I really, really envision that all of us can one day have lunches with our children when they are working adults, and they will consult us, another C, consult us on the highs, and the lows, the ups and downs in their lives, and they will not do things behind our backs. And for that to happen, it must start now.
So 5 C's we have all heard from Yvonne today, being a calm parent, learning to connect before we move on to the 3rd C of correction, and then checking in with our children, how they are, how are we doing as parents. And the 5th C is being a coach, all right, to our children. So that's really important. And I hope all the parents, as you're listening in, you have benefited from today's sharing. Like again, I say, we are not experts here. We are just everyday parents learning in our journey. And we hope that in this episode, you have learned much in practical ways too. Remember what Yvonne has shared with us, that it's about coming back to the foundation, building that relationship with our children first and foremost. So I hope all of us, we have gained practical tips, insights, and benefited much from today's episode of our podcast. And I hope you will feel more confident as you engage and talk with our children, so that our children will really listen to us as we make effort to share with them. So remember, parents, don't stop listening, because even though your teen is unlikely to admit it, they still need and want us in their lives. Thank you so much for tuning in to our ParentNet podcast today. A shout out also for those of us who have teenage daughters. You will be happy to know that our signature event at Focus on the Family Singapore called Date with Dad is back. After a 2 years little break that we had because of the pandemic, Date with Dad is going to happen on the 12th of November. Fathers will have a unique opportunity to invite their daughters to an unforgettable date to celebrate their teenage daughter's milestone and journey to become a confident young woman. For more details on Date with Dad, you may head over to family.org.sg/datewithdad. And for all the parent listeners out there, if you're looking for more parenting resources, do check out our website at family.org.sg. We hope that you can share this podcast with a friend or fellow parent who might find the information very useful and beneficial as well. So be sure to catch us on our next ParentNet podcast. Until next time, have a great week with your family.